video, we are going to explain in a theoretical way the different most important definition of what a conflict is and what its means classification are, as well as the we will address four different conflicts present in both the African and Asia continents, analyzing the actors, interests, and causes and the influence that the colonization and decolonization process had on the validity of these conflicts. To analyze what a conflict is, we can understand it according to how the Department of Justice of the Generalitat of Catalonia spoke. It is a opposition of different cycle elements, desires, values, beliefs that are externally manifested as a symptom or a problem of conduct. For example, in the Freudian conception, the opposition between a desire and a moral demand can manifest itself as a behavioral problem. Within the different classification of the conflict, we can find conflicts according to their scope or their effects. Conflict according to their content, in which more highlights relationship conflicts between people, information conflicts, conflicts of interests, structural conflicts, conflicts of values. Conflicts are also pretends according to their nature, classified by Dutch, in which they are the true conflicts, containing conflicts, displaces conflict, misattributes conflict, latent conflict, and false conflict. This different classification of conflict, the cause and differentiation can be found objectively within the conflict analysis of the countries that we will show in this study. Thus, we find Afghanistan, the main actor of the conflict in this historical development, and the present are Grand Britain, Pakistan, the United States, the Mujahideen, the Taliban, and Al Qaeda. After the British occupation and the end of the 20th century, the country was liberated in the Anglo-Afghan War in 1919. After this liberation of decolonization, time later the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan was consolidated under a communist regime that surfaced a coup of state, which leads to the Soviet occupation of the country. This generated a great discomfort, mainly due to its anti-religious measures, for which religious liberation groups were born that together became known as the Mujahideen, supported economically and militarily by the countries that they considered the Soviet invasion as illegitimate, which included Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United Kingdom and the United States. Later, from the border of Pakistan, a new group began to again strengthen progressive with the intention of overthrowing the faction of the Mujahideen, called the Taliban. Managing to seize power in the country, established the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. On September 12th, by 2021, one of the Taliban faction, the Al Qaeda, an Islamic fundamentalist group, carried out the terrorist attack against the United States, for which the United States and the NATO bloc decided to intervene and invade Afghanistan. In 22 in 2022, and the United States established a democratic government with the intention of consolidating a representative model in the country. In 2004, the first free elections in the country were held. During the Trump government in 2020, the Doha Pact with the Taliban was signed to progressively withdraw troops from Afghanistan, with the Taliban committed the negotiated democracy process with the Afghan government. In the Biden government in August 2021, the government is fully funded, and the United States suddenly withdraws its troops from Afghanistan and gives way to swift seizure of power by the Taliban regime, forcing the President Ashraf Ghani to leave the country. On the other hand, in the Myanmar conflict, we can find actors such as Grand Britain, as Aung Suu Kyi, Nobel Peace Prize winner, Burmese army, the Tatmadaw. The installation of the British administration in Burma as a mere province of India displaces much of the aristocracy of the country. The leaders became English, with the Burmese majority come a marginalized sector from the access to administration. In 1920, a series of students' strikes began and led to numerous protests against fees and taxes. In 1923, these initiatives became a true national insurrection that challenged the foundation of British colonialism. On January 27, the August Atoll Treaty was signed in London, by which Burma achieved independence once for all. In 1962, General Ne Win stated a coup of began a long military dictatorship, which completely isolated the country. Aung San Suu Kyi, daughter of the one of the parents of Burmese independence, as exiled by the dictatorship in 22, returning to the country supported by the civilization forces. In, in 2022, the military junta developed the route of democracy. In 2015, democracy elections were held, which Aung San Suu Kyi won. won. Due to popularism, the army feared that Aswan would subtract benefits from the military, so who carried off the coup of denouncing fraudulent elections. This time different demonstrations have taken place within the country against generating great division in addition to the countries such as Indonesia, the United States and the European Union are present when the diplomatic and economic sanctions. For its part, the conflict in Nigeria presents actors of interest such as the United Kingdom, Christians and Muslims, and Boko Haram. The main causes of the conflict are Nigeria achieved independence from the United Kingdom in 1916, in the Biafra War. In 1999, three presidential elections were held that took Olusegun Obasanjo to head to the republic, since the Obasanjo would renovate his mandate in April 2023, has faced constant meddling by the army. Endemic corruption depend on oil, intercommunal tension for control of power and territory, regional conflicts, and confrontations between Muslims and Christians in the north of the country, among others. Since independence 1916, the entire Delta region has been affected by fighting between militias and the streaks and the Iwas communities. The main causes of the conflict are the little benefit they receive from oil exploration, corruption, and management of resources, and the impunity enjoyed by the parties in conflict for the abuses committed. Today, the Niger Delta region is considered by many as a war situation. In addition to the religious conflict between Christians and Muslims, especially after the adoption of the so-called Islamic law by the north of the country, generated a situation of political and social instability and creation of the Islamic fundamentalist group Boko Haram, supported by ISIS. And this had added up causes the country with the highest GDP in Africa to go through deep social crisis. In 1912, a BBC report indicated that 61% of Nigerians were below the poverty line. In the Somali conflict, we can find actors such as the United Kingdom, Italy, Ethiopia, and the states of Somaliland and Puntland. The main causes of this conflict are after the Berlin Conference, it was decided to split Somalia into the north, British domination, and the south, Italian domination. In 1916, both North and South Somalia achieved their independence from British and Italian occupation. The new government, led by Abdel Abdullah Osman, issued the first Somalian constitution in 1961. President Abdullah is assassinated in 1969 by Mohamed Barre. In 1966 76, Barre established an authoritarian regime that struck irredentarians in the Somali territories, which leads to the Ogaden War with Ethiopia. The migration product of the war developed mainly of the north of the country in the territories of the Isaac clan. The clan carried out usurpations to lead to the negotiated genocide of the Isaac. The impact of this ethnic cleansing produced the Somalian Civil War that began in 1989. The northern part of the country, the former British territory, declared its independence in 1991, creating the Republic of Somaliland. In 1998, a new state called Poland was separated. These two states enjoy greater stability than they thought. In, in, six, in 2016, the civil war began again, in which various Islamist groups entered the conflict. Groups such as Al-Sabah, a branch of Al-Qaeda, have managed to dominate various territories in the south. In 2016, a political coalition reached a consensus for the construction a new constitution, in addition to seeking holding of democratic general election. However, these elections have not been able to take place in the absence of the political solution have not had an impact on the stability of the country.